journalist asked him something to the effect of, what do you have your eye on? What's the new trend? What's the thing that's going to change? And he gave a very thoughtful answer. He said, I don't spend most of my time focusing on the things that are going to change. I spend most of my time thinking about the things that are going to stay the same. And the journalist says, what do you mean? And so Jeff explains, he says, well, imagine 10 years from now. I can't imagine someone calls me up and says, Jeff, I love Amazon. Really, I love it. I wish the prices were higher, right? That's never going to happen. People are always going to want lower prices. There's no way in 10 years someone calls me up and says, Jeff, I love Amazon. I wish it took longer for things to arrive at my house. Again, not going to happen, right? People always will want faster delivery. And finally, people also are always going to want more selection. They will always want lower prices, faster delivery, and more selection. And that's why Amazon is successful, because Amazon focuses on those things that will never change. So we need to do the same thing. We need to focus on the stuff that will always be true and relevant in our industry. So what's always going to be true? That people are always going to want shortcuts to achieving whatever outcome they care about. Not in a bad way, not in a cutting corners kind of way, just in the legitimate way that if you are a real expert in a field, you know how to get something done and get it done a lot faster in less time, at less cost, and with less risk of failure. Drop the word shortcut into the chat if your market wants an outcome that your expertise can get them to in less time, at less cost, and with less risk of failure than if they try to do it on their own. Put shortcut into the chat if that shortcut is valuable enough to them that they would be willing and even eager to pay for it. Awesome. Exactly. I'm seeing a ton of shortcut in the chat. You guys are seeing it as well. So you understand this is what people want. I love what I saw someone write, shortcut with integrity. Exactly. No hocus pocus, no tomfoolery, just a real, I can get you there faster because I know the way. And that is something that will always be true. And delivering that sort of shortcut requires two things. First, legitimate expertise. Being an expert doesn't just mean you know a bunch about a topic like ChatGPT seems to. Being an expert means you have knowledge, yes, and also discernment and insight. There's an old saying among internet marketers that if you read 5 books about a topic, you know more about that topic than anyone but a real expert. And that makes you a de facto expert. And in my experience, a lot of real experts, the sort that have spent years and decades developing knowledge and judgment and discernment and insight into their area of expertise, tend to find this offensive. If you feel that way, put the word offensive into the chat. If this idea that, someone reads 5 books, that makes them an expert. Never mind that reading 5 books and actually understanding 5 books are two very different things. But the reason it is offensive is that being an expert doesn't just mean you know some good information. It means you know the best answer. The mark of a real expert is the ability to say, everyone else thinks X, but I know that really it's Y. Being an expert means knowing where other people are wrong. And AI can't do that. It doesn't have insight or a point of view because it doesn't understand anything. ChatGPT is the epitome of reading 5 books on a topic and thinking you're an expert. But regurgitating the most statistically likely answer based on the data set isn't the same as having the discernment and insight to give the best answer, especially given that there's no guarantee that the information the AI was trained on was right in the first place. So everything we're going to talk about over these 2 days is going to be built around your legitimate expertise. So I'm going to give you a few minutes. I want you to share in the chat, what is your area of legitimate expertise where you know enough that you can say, everyone else might think X, but I know that really it's Y. Of expertise that you are all bringing to your work and that you're going to use AI to turn into hybrid courses that are going to help so many people. That's awesome. So we're talking about real, legitimate expertise, knowing enough to know what other people are wrong about. That's the first thing you need. And the second thing that you need to be able to provide a meaningful shortcut is that you're helping them shortcut a journey that is otherwise long and expensive and perilous. Right? You don't need a shortcut to walk across the street because it's right there. You just walk and that's it. It's easy. We only need shortcuts to do things that are challenging. And if it's challenging, then it means that they need a lot more than a simple explanation or procedure. They need you to help them actually get good enough at whatever you're teaching for them to get the outcome they're after. And we don't get good at things just by reading text or watching video, whether it was produced by humans or by AI, because the learning doesn't happen in the technology. It happens in the brain that is behind the eyes of the person who is looking at the screen. And that brain is just as interested in saving shortcuts and saving time as you are. So if you just use AI to shortcut the process, so will they. As Tom Fishburne articulated in this hilarious webcomic. On the left, we've got a guy saying, look, AI turns this single bullet point into a long email I can pretend I wrote. And on the right, she says, look, AI makes a single bullet point out of this long email so I can pretend I read it. So we can't play these games. We need to shift our thinking away from some notion of what's the least I can do to throw something together that I can set and forget because people will be tricked into paying for it, and focus on what it will take to actually and profitably deliver a transformation that is meaningful to your students. And the way that we get good at things is through an actual learning journey, which has to include 3 key steps. First, insightful explanations for them to consume through audio or video or text or whatever. And those explanations lead to opportunities to apply what they've learned through theoretical exercises or practical work, and then get feedback on what they're doing right and how they need to improve. And the traditional conception of an online course, which is a bunch of videos that the creator sets and forgets inside of a sort of membership site, just isn't capable of providing this sort of transformative learning experience. To do that, you need to mix and match all the tools in the course creator's toolbox, from live instruction to pre-recorded audio and video to micro-learning to gamification to cohorts to coaching to community, and yes, of course, AI and ChatGPT all the way through. And there's a name for the sort of course that includes all of these different elements. It is called a hybrid course. And it has the double advantage that it can deliver a transformation that is actually worth paying for. And because of all the pieces that go into it, customers can see that it is obviously different than the sort of courses that ChatGPT can easily spit out. And that protects you from the erosion of trust that the rest of the industry is experiencing. And my students are seeing this firsthand, that the demand and pricing power of their hybrid courses is holding steady and even growing. The trick is that you pretend to have a different slider for each of these tools. So you can ramp up the audio video, ramp down the cohorts, ramp up the community or whatever to find the configuration that gets the best results for your students and for your business. And that's what unlocks the possibility to multiply the value that you're delivering, and by extension, the business results that you're seeing, while also scaling back the amount of effort that it takes for you. It's not about passive income. That's a pipe dream. We're going to talk more about that later. But it is about creating really powerful leverage so that you can create a lot of transformation and justify real premium prices without taking a huge amount of your effort or time. We're going to talk a lot about all the different dimensions of hybrid course businesses, from the design of hybrid courses to how to market them, to how to scale hybrid courses without running yourself ragged, and of course, how to do all that with artificial intelligence. But I also don't want to waste your time if this isn't relevant for you. And that is why I promised you that I will give you a few off-ramps over the course of this weekend, so you can know if this is the path that is right for you and that you want to pursue, so you can be intentional about making the disciplined choice to make it happen. And to get to that first off-ramp, I want to share with you 4 prerequisites that you need to have in place to make this work. If you can check these boxes, then you're all set to move forward. And if not, you should take the next off-ramp. So, what do you need for AI to help you build a thriving hybrid course business? There are 4 things, and we're going to explore them one by one. We're going to use this heuristic kind of mnemonic aid of the Vitruvian Man stick figure. So the first thing that you need is the wallet, and the wallet represents an income or a way to support yourself. Now, why, right? Why do you need to have an income in order to do this? Because even though some of the stuff out there around AI and online courses might sound like some get-rich-quick scam, it isn't. You can absolutely make a lot of money and create a lot of freedom by following the steps and applying the strategies that I will share with you this weekend, but not overnight. Remember that we're talking about building something real and impactful. And AI can help you do it faster, but it's still going to take some time. So if you don't know how you're going to pay your rent next month, I'm sorry to say this is not the answer. So if you have a financial runway, you're like, okay, I'm not worried about paying my bills next month, put the word wallet into the chat. Excuse me. All right, awesome. So I'm seeing a lot of people checking the wallet box. Fantastic. So that's the first thing you need. Second thing you need is the heart. And the heart represents a commitment to building something that makes a real difference in the lives of your students. And that doesn't have to be the only thing that motivates you, but if it isn't in the mix, you should just give up right now and find an easier way to make money. And it is very important if you want to make money because high-end clients expect a lot for their money. So a commitment to building something that makes a real difference in the lives of your students and the belief that a shortcut is worth paying a premium for. Now, we've already talked about this. And earlier, when I said put the word care into the chat, and so many of you did, that tells me you can all check this second box. So we're good. So next, we have our third item on our checklist, which is the wristwatch. And the wristwatch represents your desire to get this all done in the relative short term, which creates a bias towards imperfect action. Now, there are a couple things in there, so let's unpack them. First of all, when I say the relative short term, what do I mean? I mean, probably in the next few months and definitely before the end of the year. And this is important for three reasons. First, because if it isn't a near-term priority, let's get real, it just won't get done. Second, because the urgency of what's happening with AI in the world means that if you don't move on this in the short term, you're kind of screwed. And there's also a third reason, but we'll come back to that in a moment. First, I just want to ask, and I'm going to invite you to think about and then commit to a timeline, or at least a timeline range for launching your AI-supported hybrid course. So what is the minimum and maximum time frame in which you want to launch your AI-supported course? Drop that answer into the chat. All right. So I love what I'm seeing. You guys are right on the money by and large, right? Wanting to get it done in the next 1, 2, 3 to 4, 5, 6 kind of months. That's perfect. So you need to want to do it in the relative short term. And we've already talked about two reasons why. First, because if it isn't a near-term priority, it just doesn't get done. And second, because the urgency of what's happening with AI means that you don't really have a choice. But there's a third reason. The third reason is that the urgency to do it in the relative short term creates a bias towards imperfect action. And we'll explore why imperfect action is so important over the course of these 2 days. But for now, let's just leave it at the fact that if you do what you've always done, you will get what you've always got. But what you've always done is going to be comfortable because you've done it, you're comfortable with it. And that's why you have to be willing to step out of your comfort zone. So if that sounds like you, if you want to do it in the relative short term, thus creating a bias towards imperfect action, put the word wristwatch into the chat. Awesome. Okay. Lots of people saying yes, wristwatch, fantastic. Okay. So we've covered 3 prerequisites so far. There is the wallet, the heart, and the wristwatch. And these are the basics. Now let's get to the meat and potatoes of what will either drive your hybrid course success or prevent it. And that's about what is in your head, represented by the brain, which is about the knowledge, insight, and expertise that is substantive, legitimate, and high value. There's a lot there. I'm going to read it again. Knowledge, insight, and expertise that is substantive, legitimate, and high value. And there's a lot there, so let's unpack it. Starting with the word legitimate. What do I mean by legitimate expertise? Well, just like we talked about how ChatGPT isn't an expert because it's done the high-tech equivalent of reading 5 books, the same is true for you. You have to be an actual expert in your field. And credentials help, but this isn't about credentials per se. It's just about having the training, experience, and track record to actually be able to help people. And when you have legitimate expertise, it is also substantive, meaning you know enough that you can't just give it all away in an hour, right? Otherwise, there just isn't enough depth there to justify a premium hybrid experience, right? To sell a premium, an hour of information is just a lead-in. That's why I'm comfortable sharing just so much with you all the time. It's because if you can manage with just the information that I give you, that's great. More power to you, just run with it. But if this is the right path for you and you want to make it happen in less time, at less cost, with less risk of failure, I know you're probably going to want to work with me and my team at some point to make it happen through our various programs, like our ACES year-long coaching program, right? So I can give away lots of content because there's a lot of substantive depth to my expertise. So your expertise has to be legitimate, therefore it has to be substantive. It also has to be in a topic area that is high value enough to support the results that you're after. And there's a lot that goes into that sort of high value topic area, and we'll talk more about that later today. But fundamentally, it's about you being able to offer them a real and meaningful shortcut to get to an outcome that they care enough about to be willing and eager to pay for it. And the more of a shortcut it is, the more valuable the course becomes. So that's our 4th requirement. The knowledge, insight, and expertise that is substantive, legitimate, and high value. If you can check that box, drop the word brain into the chat. If you have the knowledge, insight, and expertise that is substantive, legitimate, and high value in your field. Awesome. Lots of brains, which does not surprise me at all, knowing the sort of people who tend to gravitate towards my work. Awesome. So these are the 4 things that you need to build a successful hybrid course business empowered by AI. Plus, of course, you need to know the steps to follow, the support and guidance to implement them effectively, etc. And AI can speed that process up a lot, as you'll see. Now, I share this list of prerequisites for 2 reasons. 1, so that you know what you need, but also so that you know what you don't need. You don't need anything that isn't on that list. So you don't need teaching experience. You don't need marketing skills. You don't need a website or podcast. You don't need to have an audience or email list. You don't need technology skills. You don't need to be an extrovert. And that is to say that none of those things will help you, right? Of course, they will help you, but you can develop them over time, right? What you need is to be able to create real transformation for your students, and you will learn all the rest. Now, I promised you off-ramps. So here's the next one. If you can check all 4 of those boxes, put the number 4 into the chat, right? Just the number 4 is fine. If you can check all 4 of those boxes, awesome. And for everyone who can check those 4 boxes, I will invite you to continue with us. But if you can't, for whatever reason, and there's no judgment whatsoever, if you can't check these 4 boxes, then I suggest you sign off and enjoy the rest of your weekend. But for those of you who do meet these 4 requirements, I'm going to invite you to make another commitment. And this time, the commitment that I'm asking you to make is to stick around and be present until the end of the day for 2 more sessions this afternoon. If you're willing to do that, put the word committed into the chat. All right. I love it. I see a lot of very committed people, which is fantastic. If you are that committed, I am going to be able to deliver a ton of value to you. Okay, so now what we're going to do is take a break. And we're taking a break for a few reasons. One, to refresh our brains and bodies. Also, to get caught up if you feel the need. If you covered something that you're like, I didn't quite get it, I want to think about it, I want to finish an exercise, you have time in the break to do that. So here's what I want you to do on the break. Do get some food, get some drink, use the restroom, move around, go outside, get some fresh air. I love that we are all here connected, intermediated by technology. That is wonderful. But our brains and our bodies are not designed to sit in front of screens for extended periods of time. So step away from your devices, be outside, look at something that is near 3 feet away from your face, more emitting blue light. Look at something ideally in nature. Here's what you should not do with your break. Do not do email. Do not spend time on your phone. Do not do busy work. Do not let yourself get distracted. Allow the things that we've talked about over the last session to kind of percolate and gel in your brain. There is one homework assignment that I'm going to give you, which is that if you haven't already, I want you to create a ChatGPT account because we're going to use it in the coming sessions. You can do that by going to chat.openai.com. It's very easy to create your account. It is free, it doesn't cost anything. So if you don't already have a ChatGPT account, go and create it and then take a break, refresh, recharge, and come back at 1 p.m. Eastern. And we will jump into the next couple of sessions, which are all about how to win with hybrid courses and how to fill your hybrid course with paying students, all using AI to speed it all up. All right, let's go. Thank you all very much.